19th?
Senator
March?
McDonald, you're now live.
Okay.
If
This is
you would start
Friday
that again.
afternoon. The 19th? And we're ready to go live in the Senate Finance Committee. The floor is yours, Ms. Dexter Cooper, and the bill is on electric motorcycles.
Thank you, Senator McDonald. So for the record, my name is Anthea Dexter Cooper from the Office of Legislative Counsel, and I'm here to talk to you about S66. The bill is as it was introduced, and then Senate Transportation recommended it out without any amendments. That is posted to your committee page along with a one-page handout on the bill. The first section just lays out what the bill does very quickly, and then I've got some language on the fee piece, which is why I think this was referred to the committee. I can share these documents on the screen if the committee would like. So I will take direction from you on that. Otherwise, I will just talk to you. So S66 in general is adding a definition of electric bicycle to 23 VSA section 4, which is the main definition section for all of Title 23. It's also amending the definition of motor assisted bicycle to only include under that definition bicycles that have pedals as required under the definition, but it needs to have an internal combustion motor as opposed to just any motor under S66. And that's what you're getting in sections 3 and 4. It also is amending the definitions applicable to some or all of Title 23 to specifically exclude electric bicycles from the definition of motorcycle, motor vehicle, motor driven cycle, motor assisted bicycle, and all-terrain vehicles. It's amending the definition, and that's sections 1 to 3, 8 and 9. It's also amending the definition of vulnerable user to include someone operating an electric bicycle, which is consistent to vulnerable user, including people who are operating a bicycle, and that's in section 5. And then in section 6 and 7, it's adding a new section to Title 23, 1136A, to provide some governance and regulation around electric bicycles. And then if you look in S66 on pages 4 and 5, you'll see your fee language. So if S66 is enacted under 1136 subsection B, and then specifically subdivision 1, it'll provide that electric bicycles and their operators shall be exempt from motor vehicle registration, inspection, and certificate of title requirements. So there wouldn't be the requirement to register an electric bicycle, nor would there be a registration fee associated with that electric bicycle. And that begs the question of, well, what's happening now? So electric bicycles currently fall under the statutory definition of motor assisted bicycle because there's not the carve out for the only internal combustion piece, and we don't yet have a definition for electric bicycle. So under 23 VSA section 1136 D1, that provides that motor assisted bicycles and their operators shall be exempt from motor vehicle registration and inspection and operators license requirements. So very similar to the language that would be added specific for electric bicycles. So if S66 is enacted, electric bicycles will not be subject to registration requirements or registration fee. And if S66 is not enacted, they will continue under the definition of motor assisted bicycle to not be subject to registration requirements nor a registration fee. So I think that's why the bill is with you, but I'm happy to answer questions or tell you more about electric bicycles. People for Bikes has put out a cool infographic that can show you the different types of vehicles under the different classes. And I can probably, with the help of their FAQ, answer questions about electric bicycles if people are wondering more about this new form of transportation.
Any questions? Senator Pearson, you're muted.
Thank you. Anthea, right?
There you go.
That's how, okay. This is interesting. And so I want to make sure I understand. Is this sort of a standard, maybe you mentioned this, is this a standard definition that's used more broadly? So we're kind of standardizing Vermont statutes?
Yeah, so People for Bikes has been pushing this 3-tier classification system for electric bicycles for several years. I think they've hit a majority of states now that are using the classification system, and it's based on federal requirements about like tapping out at 20 miles per hour when it's not in pedal assist mode, which is going to get you your class 2 classification requirements for electric bicycles. So part of this is really to establish uniformity from state to state. It's also really trying to, and it says right in the beginning of 1136A, except as provided in the subsection, electric bicycles shall be governed as bicycles under Vermont law. So creating this sort of different treatment of, yes, it has an electric motor, but we're going to the extent, our laws allow, treat it as a bicycle. And then within some of the language that's added as 1136A, it's also specifying how municipalities and state entities can regulate the usage of them and where they can be used. So we've got this new form of transportation. Let's define it. Let's say how we're going to treat it, and then have some uniformity across our state and other states with how the technology can be used.
Thank you. And then a few years ago, I think you maybe helped me. Senators will remember.
We're talking about scooters.
Other than frustrating, because I thought it was a good policy, it was hilarious because I was instrumental in bringing an amendment to a T bill that Senator Ash then argued on the floor, and a little bit of karma got really torn up, and we didn't advance that. But these little electric scooters, there've been pilots in Montpelier. They wanted to do it here in Burlington. Are those in here at all?
No, this still has absolutely nothing to do with electric scooters. Electric scooters will continue to fall under the definition of a motor-driven cycle. And on the infographic that People for Bikes has put out, they specifically say an electric bicycle is not a scooter. This is only dealing with things that have pedals and seats. So if you want to get your pilot program in Burlington, it might be, and one of the things that language that was added to the T-bill a few years ago said, for purposes of this pilot program, regulate them as a motor-assisted bicycle. Your decision point now, if S66 is enacted, is if you're going to do a pilot program to say, should they be treated as a motor-driven cycle or should they be treated as an electric bicycle, since the regulatory requirements will be slightly different between the two.
I don't have the bandwidth to consider that right now, but the committee, they must have thought about it, right? I mean, they just decided to leave that alone altogether.
Didn't address it at all. Scooters. All right. This is the first time I've said scooters all session.
Thank you.
Senator Bray.
Could you explain a little bit about the significance of the term vulnerable user and why we define that, and then what do we do with that term?
So I'll pull up the definition of vulnerable user. A lot of it has to do with passing and clearance requirements that's given on your state highways if someone is going around a vulnerable user. So the definition of vulnerable user under 23 VSA section 4, subdivision 81 is vulnerable user means a pedestrian, an operator of highway building, repair, or maintenance equipment, or of agricultural equipment, a person operating a wheelchair or other personal mobility device, whether motorized or not, a person operating a bicycle or other non-motorized means of transportation, such as roller skates, rollerblades, or roller skis, or a person riding, driving, or herding an animal. And then in Title 23, I will not know this one off the top of my head, so I'm gonna have to search for it. Vulnerable user is used for purposes of treatment on roads. And 23 VSA section 1033 has to do with passing motor vehicles and vulnerable users. And with respect to vulnerable users, that statute provides that when you're approaching or passing vulnerable users, the operator of a motor vehicle must exercise due care, which includes reducing speed and increasing clearance to a recommended distance of at least 4 feet to pass the vulnerable user safely, and shall cross the center of the highway only as provided in section 1035 of this title. A person who violates the subsection shall be subject to a civil penalty of not less than $200. So that additional passing clearance is being provided to bicycles. this would say it also should be provided to people who are on an electric bicycle.
Great. Thanks so much.
Senator Hardy.
Thank you. And thanks, Anthea. It's actually kind of refreshing to deal with a bill like this after our floor debate. Two questions. I'm on the Bikes for People website that you mentioned, and you mentioned an infographic. Can you tell me where that might be?
I think the easier place to find it is going to be on Senate Transportation's webpage from, I want to say it's March 9th. And
Okay.
Faith has given me
Anthea?
sharing access.
Anthea, this is Faith. I just posted it on our website.
Oh, excellent.
That's great.
So
Oh.
I will take down my share. From that same day, Faith, if you wanted to post the letter from Alex, at the end of that, it has a 2-page FAQ that's got some interesting information about electric bicycles, such as how many are registered in the United States, the average price, and then a few other things that I've been getting questions with respect to electric bicycles.
Okay, I'll take a look at that. My second question is basically this came to us because of the fee situation, part of the bill. And it's not imposing a new fee or changing any existing fees. It's just saying that these vehicles will not be subject to the fees that other vehicles are subject to, right?
Correct.
Okay, so there's no actual fiscal impact.
I don't think there is. I also think it would be almost, and I think you'd probably hear this from JFO, but when I was thinking about this today, since motor assisted bicycles, of which electric bicycles are a subset of, since they're not currently registered, I don't necessarily know how JFO would even estimate how many of them are on the road for purposes of saying what the fiscal impact would be if you were to have a registration fee. Bills have been introduced in the past to have a registration fee for bicycles, and they haven't moved anywhere. So it'd be continuing to treat electric bicycles like motor assisted cycles.
Right, okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Senator Bragg.
Mr. Chair, I'm getting a message to go to approach, so I'm leaving momentarily. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we're not going to vote on this today. Senator Pearson.
Just because you've pointed us to this infographic, why is the class 2 seems to be class 3? It doesn't go 1, 2, 3 in a successive order. That's kind of strange. Any clue why that is?
So
Class
that has
2
to
is the
do.
big one.
That has to do with whether or not it needs to be operated in pedal assist mode. So a class 1 electric bicycle is an electric bicycle equipped with a motor that provides, and this is the significant part for class 1 and class 3, that provides assistance only when the rider is pedaling, and that ceases to provide assistance when the bicycle reaches the speed of 20 miles per hour. Class 2 is similar with that 20 mile per hour tap out, but it means an electric bicycle equipped with a motor that may be used exclusively to propel the bicycle and that is not capable of providing assistance when the bicycle reaches the speed of 20 miles per hour. So you don't need to be pedaling for it to be at 20 miles per hour. And then class 3 is just like class 1. It requires pedaling and it taps out at 28 miles per hour. And for purposes of those under 1136, you would need to have a speedometer on it. And individuals under the age of 16 are not allowed to operate it. They are allowed to be a passenger on a class 3 electric bike, but only if the electric bicycle is equipped to have a passenger. So that's why it doesn't go in direct order. And it seems like your class 2 electric bicycle is a lot more powerful than your class 3 electric bicycle.
Thanks.
Senator Hardy.
Thank you. This is a question for the chair. You just said we're not voting on it. Don't we have to vote on it today so it gets to the floor tomorrow, or am I misunderstanding our schedule? Don't bills from finance and appropriations have to get to the
Excellent
floor?
question.
Okay. What's the answer?
I should know the answer to that.
The answer is no. It has to be voted out of committees by Friday.
Okay.
So-
That's
so
good to know.
We're gonna need at least 4 if that's the case.
I thought that we had to have everything voted out of committee today and off the floor tomorrow. So,
And this has been officially referred to us because it doesn't have a fee. and it doesn't have a fee because it falls under the definition of something that does have a fee? And it is needed, it is needed to exempt it from something that is in fall, which would otherwise be charged if we were not specific to say it is feeless.
Right, I think that there would be an ambiguity if you didn't say that it was feeless, but under the existing law with how motor assisted bicycles are treated for purposes of a registration fee, I don't think it's a deviation for the mode of transportation between current law and S66 as it's enacted. But I think probably it was referred to this committee because you wouldn't have known that unless you happen to know about motor assisted bicycles and the current regulatory framework with respect to registration. So I can see why it was referred to this committee for you guys to weigh in on it.
And then the bill number is
S66.
an interesting coincidence from a former television show. Senator Saratkin.
So just so I'm clear, so right now there is no requirement to register these vehicles, right?
Correct.
Okay. So how could they?
Nor is there a requirement
how
for
could
a
they
fee.
impose a fee even if they wanted to?
So
without registration.
under current law, I don't think they could, but since we're carving out electric bicycles from the definition of motor assisted bicycle, you wouldn't then be specifying one way or the other whether or not registration requirements would apply. So I think that this is just taking a belts and suspenders approach to say these registration requirements are not required, as opposed to specifying registration requirements or just leaving it up in the air as to whether or not there are registration requirements.
Any other questions? Senator Pearson.
For you, Mr. Vice Chair, do you want to not move this bill?
No, I think we would not be in danger were we to move the bill, and the chair would be pleased to be doing other things and today. So, but
Wait.
the one
You want a
comment.
motion, Mr.
Just one comment on the rules about vehicles and animals and other things on the side of the road. What was that provision? What was the type that
Vulnerable user.
vulnerable users? Well, it was 111 years ago that the state of Vermont took it upon itself to pass legislation requiring that vehicles on state highways approaching one another were restricted to passing them on the right. So we've come a long way in the registration of vehicles. And I think it was in the Acts and Resolves of 1910. So that'd be anyway, do we have a motion on the floor? And excuse me, what was the motion out of transportation without recommendation?
They recommended favorably, no amendments, and the vote was 5-0.
Okay.
Senator
Any
McDonald?
senators seek to follow the traditions established since 1910 and further regulate?
It's been all downhill since then, right? I mean, this stuff, I can't believe you resisted. I'd be glad to move S66 without amendment.
Without
And
them.
that we advance S66 favorably. Is that the right motion?
Yes. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hi,
All opposed?
Wait, Randy,
Randy, you pressed the wrong button.
he's out of here.
Okay, we've got 5-1-1. Now, before I ask.
No.
for
We have
order,
Whoa.
502,
Yeah.
I think.
5-0-2. I can't chair and count at the same time.
And clerk, boy, you're
Yeah.
dressed.
The reporter is going to be obliged to sing the theme song or the song Route 66 prior and part of presenting this bill.
Pearson's totally up for that. You
I think-
so need to do this
We're-
bill after the whole speaker
Senator
debacle.
McDonald's the only one who knows the theme song.
Bobby Troop wrote it, I think. Anyway, Senator Pearson, are you the reporter of this?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I get my kicks in reporting.
Good job.
Okay. Now, Faith, not looking at the calendar, do we have anything else this afternoon? Thank you, Anthony.
Sam,
You
thanks,
will come
Cynthia.
back at 3:15 to take up S33.
Okay, 3:15, S33, Senator Pearson, you have a question? You're muted.
Since we have a bit of time, and I know we're all busy, but if you think it makes sense, I'd love to preview for the committee an idea that I'm hoping we're going to talk about tomorrow on S25. Do we know? Yeah, that is the miscellaneous changes to the cannabis law. And I'm not 100% that it's coming to us, but I kind of think it will, because the bill that Judiciary's worked on states that the cannabis permits, the fees for those will be reduced for BIPOC population. This is something you're seeing around the country. So that's fine. I support what they're doing, but we have a bigger issue around the fees in the cannabis thing, because the board was supposed to be appointed by now, and they're charged with recommending fees to the legislature by early April. And we are not going to have that happen by early April. And if we go home without any fee structure, we're going to lose a whole year. So I've been working with Michelle Childs and Wasserman and others to try to figure out what we can do. It's complicated because the board is supposed to figure out different tiers of production and how many they think we're going to need, and then create the fees. So we can't exactly just put some placeholder fees in there. So I don't want to lose time, and I don't think we're ready to develop the actual system. So what I'm going to propose is that we direct the board to bring temporary fees to the Joint Fiscal Committee to make sure we don't lose a whole year, but also to not set these things in stone. So I just wanted to put that on your radar. I alerted the chair to this whole thing. She's been aware of the dynamic, but I didn't hear back. I'm also trying to make sure we know whether or not we get S25, but in theory, Approps will vote that out today and would be referred to us tomorrow. So just a heads up.
With the language that you've just informed us might be on it.
It won't be on it. We would be adding this, here's how we think we fix the fees for the next year section. I've asked to have that drafted, so it's in the works. And apparently we have done this in some other instance where we had a similar dynamic, and in a temporary basis, Joint Fiscal was, the Joint Fiscal Committee was invoked and asked to approve a fee.
We've done it since 1910.
I don't know the history, Senator, but I'll see if I can't dig it up.
Well, then we're going to need, I'm sure the chair is, well, we're going to need some testimony from the constitutional lawyers, I guess.
Yeah, what I've seen is Michelle Childs, Becky Wasserman, and Steve Klein talking about this, and they did.
And they're going to come in to us.
I mean, potentially. I don't. That's a good question, and we should sort that out. What they found was that we did this once before, so it's a fair question whether or not that means it's constitutional.
Yeah, we've done it before and been such a thing before and then been sued, strangely enough, by a House member. And before the case came to court, the legislature had reconvened in the following year, and it ratified retroactively the decision that was under suit, rendering it moot. So,
Yeah, and that might well, we just have a timing problem. Next January, we could agree, we could nudge the fees around, whatever. But if we don't wait till then they won't permit any businesses, and we will.
is the failure to permit businesses because no fee has been established, or when would the permitting actually take place and the sales be ready before or after the legislature reconvenes next year? Or after?
Well, so this is the heart of the problem. You don't issue a permit on Monday and open the store on Tuesday. There's a whole backlog of production. You gotta,
So it might,
et cetera. So the law that we all enacted contemplates permits being issued by this fall for grow facilities. And then the very first stores potentially May or June next year. The bulk of the stores in October 22. So
one could have a fee that was you could have a fee that was on paper, enabling stores to open in their scheduled time with ample time for the legislature to ratify something. Okay. That's sort of the stage. That's not a endorsement of anything, but that's the.
Yeah, I think to my mind, it would be noted as a temporary fee to handle this 6-month period or
Or a
whatever.
fee pending ratification or alteration by the legislature by a date certain or something like that. Yeah.
Hey, guys, I just want to say, I'm fine with this concept if we get the bill. I think I am. I just want to see it, but I'm going to go. Since we have a break, I need to do some
If
other
you
stuff.
have to go, anyone can go. Senator Pearson was kind of
3:15, is that when we're supposed to be
prepare us
back, Mark?
before we took it up tomorrow. Excuse me?
What time are we supposed to be back? 3:15?
Yes, 3:15.
Yes, okay. Thank you, Faith. All right, I'll
Boss
see you
says
back there.
3:15. See you then.
Bye.
Senator, would you like to end live stream now?
Yes, and live stream.